Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yasmando dvijate loko lokando dvijate chaya. Harshamarsha payodvigara mukto yasim sachame priyaha. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Purport. A few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way as to put others into anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. Actually, because the devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification and his body. But when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification and he hasn't, he is sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he is in a state of fear, and when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. A devotee is always transcendental to all these disturbances. A devotee who is always transcendental to all these disturbances is very dear to Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksha Unminitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pongam Nangayati Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurunjina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Itanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sanyavari Pastacha Desatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we had started to discuss these verses because they were connected to previous talk we had given, also in Boston, about exchanges of love between devotees and what were the characteristics of such exchanges of love between one devotee and another. At that time, we spoke about what are the characteristics of love, that it's freed from any personal motivation, desire for personal gain, and its intent is to please the object of our service, to give them pleasure, spiritual pleasure. Therefore, we subsequently to that discussion went on to describe these verses given by Krishna in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita of what are the characteristics of a devotee, of one who is dear to the Lord. What is it that gives him the ability to actually manifest love towards others? And the previous verse, which was the last verse we had read in Boston, we'll read that because it coincides with this verse also that we just read tonight, where Krishna says that one who's not envious is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, is free from false ego, is equal in happiness and distress, who is tolerant, satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. And this verse tonight, he for whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Krishna is explaining these qualities of a devotee because obviously if somebody is dear to Krishna, then Krishna is very favorably disposed towards that devotee. Naturally, it's a relationship. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the characteristics between the nature of the relationship that exists between himself and his devotee. And he says, this is what somebody does who's dear to me, and this is why they are dear to me. And they are fully dependent on Krishna, and because they are fully dependent on Krishna, and because they have love towards Krishna with a desire to please Krishna, Krishna has a natural desire to reciprocate with them, and that's what we spoke about previously. We won't go into detail about how Krishna reciprocates with a person by giving his heart to that devotee, and not by giving him something of material value, because a devotee is not interested in those things. Why would Krishna give it if the devotee is not interested? If it's a loving exchange, Krishna gives that which is most relishable, most pleasurable for the devotee, and therefore Krishna gives his heart to such a devotee and gives himself completely to that devotee and fully satisfies the desires of the devotee. So the result is the devotee is satisfied already in his relationship with Krishna. And because he's satisfied in his relationship with Krishna, therefore he's not dependent upon extracting pleasure from anyone else, because he already has the greatest pleasure. In other words, and that's why Krishna is going through detail here in this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, explaining how a devotee is dear to me. Because Krishna wants Arjuna to understand, and of course he wants everyone to understand through his instructions to Arjuna, that if a devotee is dear to me, then he is self-satisfied in the sense that he is not dependent upon others for his own gratification and for the fulfillment of his needs. All his needs are already fulfilled by Krishna. So one would think, then, under such circumstances, if somebody is already fully satisfied in all his needs, then why would he extend himself to anybody? Better he just goes off to the forest, lives by himself, and is just satisfied in his relationship with Krishna. Why would he do anything? Why would he serve somebody else? Why would he care about anybody else? Why would he extend himself? Why would he interact with anyone? He has his relationship with Krishna. So it may create a sense of bewilderment for somebody who doesn't understand the nature of the relationship between a devotee who wants to please the Lord. And therefore, we understand that the devotee, there are different types of devotees. There are devotees who are simply engaged in bhajan, and there are the devotees who extend themselves in service to the Lord to extend that love he experiences in his relationship with Krishna to others. That is the devotee, who is the preacher. Of course, Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, also in the 18th chapter, Yaidam paramanguyam madbhakteshva vidyasati. He says, for one who explains the supreme secret of devotional service to others, for him, devotional service is guaranteed. In the end, he comes back to me. Nachatasman manusheshu kaschin me priya kritama. He says, there's no servant in this world who's more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one who's more dear. So, although here in this chapter, Krishna is describing the characteristics of a devotee who's dear, because he doesn't put anyone into difficulty, he's not disturbed, he's equipoised in happiness and distress, he's not envious of anyone. Later, Krishna explains that one who explains the characteristics of devotional service to others, one who extends himself to others, or extends Krishna's love that he experiences from Krishna to others by preaching the devotional service to others, then he's most dear. Why is he extending himself? Because it's pleasing to the Lord. Krishna is pleased when he sees that others are also coming close to him. Others are learning how to love him. Others are learning how to approach him. And therefore, who can best transmit Krishna's love than one who's actually experiencing Krishna's love? There's no better carrier, transmitter of Krishna's love than one who's experiencing. Why? Because Krishna's love is so satisfying. In many places in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna describes that he says, by the dust of my devotees, I desire to purify the entire material world which is situated within me. He said, thus I even follow in the footsteps of my devotees. I take their dust, Krishna says. This is how I desire to purify the world. I follow in their footsteps those devotees who are equal towards everyone, who are always speaking about me and glorifying me, who are never disturbed under any circumstances. In the same way, Krishna states this verse that I just quoted is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, but it's also describing the same details as given in these verses of Bhagavad Gita. That the love or the satisfaction a devotee experiences from Krishna's love is so dear to Krishna that Krishna says, I want to reciprocate with that devotee. So when a devotee extends himself to others, he simply desires to extend that experience of Krishna's love for others to experience. That is the mission of the devotee. That's why sometimes the devotee is sent here to this world by Krishna. I remember once I was speaking with Tamal Krishna Goswami, who was a very dear servant of Srila Prabhupada. And he was telling me a story that Prabhupada had personally told him. That he said he was sitting with Srila Prabhupada. He was present with a couple of other devotees. And Prabhupada was telling him that Krishna spoke to him and asked him to go to the material world. And then Prabhupada hesitated for a moment. And go to the material world? And then Krishna saw that hesitation and said to Prabhupada, he said, that's okay. You go, you leave your books, and then you can come back. So, when I heard that story, I heard it from a trusted servant of Prabhupada like that. I immediately embraced it, and I feel confident to repeat it. Because it so nicely illustrates how Krishna sometimes sends his confidential devotees to this world to extend Krishna's love. Sometimes Krishna comes himself, but he explains in Bhagavad Gita that it's not such a frequent visit. Once in a day of Brahma, which is, I forget calculations, 100 years of Lord Brahma and billions of years. And that Krishna comes, and he explains that he comes to deliver his devotees, to annihilate miscreants, really establish principles of religion. Whenever there's a decline of religious practice and the predominant rise of irreligion, he advocates himself for these purposes. So Krishna comes once in a day of Brahma, and he travels to each universe to extend his love for the benefit of the conditioned souls. And then he also comes again, as explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna comes again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach by his own example what are the characteristics and qualities of this love, and he makes it accessible to everybody by his method of distributing that love. Because as a devotee, as we see, a devotee can be empowered to do even that which is the Lord himself does not do. So, of course, in this case, it was Lord Chaitanya who did not appear as the Lord, but he appeared as a devotee of the Lord, and he did what no other incarnation of the Lord had ever previously done by freely distributing this love to everybody, freely giving it without considering a person's past qualifications, without considering anything about his position in life, his status in life, without considering whether he was fit or unfit. Lord Chaitanya simply extended that love in this world, and simply by coming in contact with him, persons became so attracted to the Lord and became devotees of the Lord and carriers of the Lord's mercy. So then Lord Chaitanya's mercy continues to extend through devotees who Krishna requests. Sometimes he requests an empowered living entity from the spiritual world to come and to manifest his will in this world, as we just described in the case of our beloved spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, who personally came upon Krishna's request and did astonishing feats by extending Krishna's and Lord Chaitanya's love in such a way that even persons who did not even know anything about Krishna, who were many proclaimed atheists or agnostics, and many who were addicted to all kinds of sinful acts and showed no inclination whatsoever to give up sinful activities, somehow simply by coming in contact with him, because he was such a carrier of that love, and he extended himself by displaying all of these qualities that Krishna describes here in these verses, that devotees were able to understand that Srila Prabhupada doesn't want anything from me except for me to love Krishna. That is all. He's not interested. He's not interested in any personal gain. And I do remember in 1972, when I had first come in contact with Prabhupada, my first contact with Prabhupada was Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And I distinctly remember, although it's already, it's 40 years now, isn't it? 40 years ago. I distinctly remember when I read Bhagavad Gita, completed it. I was working, and for me to complete Bhagavad Gita took some time because I would have to read a little bit every night when I came home from work. I can't remember how long it took me, but when I finally completed it, I felt it was very compelling, and I thought that I had to do more than just finish the book. But the first thought that came to my mind after completing it and getting to Krishna's conclusion and Prabhupada's conclusion was, how do I know he's not pulling the wool over my eyes? I was skeptical, and good reason to be. If I tell you all the books that I read before I read Prabhupada's Gita, you'll understand why. But I had reason to be skeptical because I had read a lot of books on Eastern philosophy. I had read a lot of books about impersonal Brahman. I had read a lot of books about from many so-called gurus. And I saw all the different approaches, some completely contradicting each other. And therefore, in the beginning, I was skeptical. And I said, how do I know this is just not the only way philosophy? And I distinctly remember using those terms. How do I know he's not pulling the wool over my eyes? And I remember coming in and sitting with a devotee and challenging him after I completed the Bhagavad Gita, and specifically throwing that one out. And of course, the devotee was able to convince me, not that he wasn't able to convince me that Prabhupada wasn't pulling the wool over my eyes, but he was able to at least convince me that I had gotten this far, why not take it a step farther to see for myself if he was actually pulling the wool over my eyes by applying myself to what Prabhupada said. So I moved to the next step and gradually got trapped. But anyways, neither here nor there in that particular example, except to emphasize that when persons are not devoted to Krishna, who are not experiencing Krishna's love, and who are not self-satisfied, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atayeva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. That the devotee of Krishna, he's Nishkama, he has no desires, therefore he's peaceful. No desires means that his desires are already fulfilled by Krishna, so he has nothing else he has to desire. He already is experiencing Krishna's love. So he has no material desires. So Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atayeva Shanta, therefore he can be peaceful. Whereas those who have some desire for bhakti, for enjoyment, material enjoyment, mukti, those who desire liberation from matter, those who desire siddhi, mystic yoga perfections, kami. Kami means they still have lusty desires. Sakali ashanta. Therefore they can't be peaceful. And if a person can't be peaceful and still has lusty desires, then he can very easily utilize Krishna to extract Krishna's words, to extract something for himself. He can become an avatar. In fact, I was exposed to that also, some person who claimed to be an avatar. And I even remember, although fortunately Prabhupada had already trapped me at the time and convinced me who was the actual Supreme Personality of Godhead. But I remember walking into a place called Erewhon. Erewhon was a very popular place in the 60s and 70s. It's actually nowhere spelled backwards. And it was a place where people would go for, I think it was a Whole Foods, natural things, and what's the word? New Age. And I remember seeing this big poster. I won't name the person, but he was the founder of what was called the Laughing Man's Institute. And then another person who I read a lot of books, Alan Watts. I read a lot of his books. The Way of Zen. He was very popular in Buddhism. Huh? Yeah, the book. That's right. Yeah. Anyways, there was a quote from Alan Watts. Very convincing quote. He says, "I think we have an avatar here," referring to the man who was... You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I think we have an avatar here. Very conclusive statement. And that was one of many endorsements I remember being subjected to during that period in my life of people who were representing God, people who were claiming to be God, or people who were representing the Vedic tradition, people who were representing religion, whatever it may be, but who were obviously to those who knew there was something higher. Maybe for most people it wasn't obvious, unfortunately, and many people became trapped by it. But for those who knew there was something higher, they were obviously interested in some gain because they were not fully satisfied. Because only Krishna Bhakta Nishkama, only the devotee of Lord Krishna can be so fully satisfied. Why? Because the devotee has Krishna, who can satisfy anyone's desires. He can satisfy everyone's desires. How does Krishna satisfy their desires? By giving them the greatest charity that one can possibly imagine, when he gives himself. When one has Krishna, why does one need anything else? Just like Dhruva Maharaj said, when he wanted to approach the Lord to get a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather's, when he came in contact with Krishna, he said, "I came here looking for a piece of broken glass, but I ended up finding the most valuable jewel." And the Lord says, "Okay, I'm ready to give you the fulfillment of your desires." He says, "Why would I want a kingdom?" Immediately lost all desires for a kingdom. Lost his desires for everything else. Because if one has Krishna, it's so far... Krishna is the greatest possession. But Krishna doesn't give himself so easily, so quickly, and so cheaply. Krishna gives himself to those who, as he describes in these verses, who display the characteristics of one who's actually dear to him. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada was capable, in his method of presentation of Krishna consciousness, to demonstrate Krishna's love by his own example, and to extend Krishna's love, extend it, because why was he reaching out to us? Just like Prabhupada in one lecture, he was explaining also, this is the verse when Krishna says that Ajopi san aviyatma bhutanam ishvaropi san. Although I'm unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I'm the Lord of all sentient beings, still I appear in every millennium, my original transcendental form. And then these verses that we already quoted, stating why Krishna comes to this world. And Prabhupada was explaining, we should not think that Krishna was coming here because he wanted to collect some servants. He wanted to come and collect something for his own personal gain. No, he had no personal gain. God has no interest to come and to collect servants for his own personal gain. He wants to share what he's experiencing, but which can only be experienced through love. He came to give, not to take. So, in the same way, we understand that the devotee, when he extends himself to others, he doesn't come to take for himself, because he has no needs for himself. And that's why Krishna is going on explaining here. We've just related a few. He says, he for whom no one is put into difficulty, who's not disturbed by anyone. He's equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. He's not dependent on the ordinary course of activities. He's pure, expert, without cares, free from pains, not striving for some result. He doesn't rejoice, nor grieve, nor lament, nor desire. He renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me. He's equal to friends and enemies, equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, always free from a contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who's fixed in knowledge, who is engaged in devotional service. These are Krishna. Why is he giving such a detailed account? So, he's giving that detailed account to show that a devotee is somebody who's already gotten something so great, so rewarding, so satisfying, that he doesn't have to extend himself to collect, extract for himself. Krishna's already given it to him. Krishna's already given it to him in the sense that Krishna has given him devotional service. That's why he says, for one who teaches this message of devotional service to others, he's already guaranteed he has devotional service. That is the criteria of his devotional service. He's sharing it, he's giving it to others, and is not interested in any personal gain. And Lord Chaitanya taught the same principle in his Sikshastika prayers. I do not want wealth, I do not want followers, I do not want to enjoy beautiful women, I simply want your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth after birth. This is how a devotee prays. And Lord Chaitanya prayed this way in his Sikshastika prayers. Therefore, it is very important to understand these qualities that are manifest in Krishna's devotee. And I think there's one verse in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, because the verse that we're reading today says that a devotee doesn't put anyone into difficulty and anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction. He never does anything intentionally to cause pain to others. And in Chaitanya Bhagavad, it is described that a person, what is it? A person who causes pain to others, that's right, and then worships Lord Vishnu, worships Vishnu in vain. In death, he suffers. This is actually Chaitanya Bhagavad. He says a person who causes pain to other living beings and then worships Vishnu, he worships Vishnu in vain. So, in other words, a devotee will never want to cause pain to others. He never wants to see others distressed. So someone may think, what is it that causes pain? Usually we think of somebody causing pain by physically inflicting a wound on somebody. But as we understand that wounds can be very painful. Yes, physical wounds can be painful, but there are other wounds that can be inflicted without even doing anything to the physical body. And we see it. It's very common, especially in the age of Kali, the age of quarrel, where people are very quick to inflict wounds on others without even physically touching them, but manifest by their envy, and Prabhupada explains right here. He says generally a materialistic person becomes very happy when there's something for his sense gratification. in his body. But he sees that others have something for their sense gratification, he hasn't. He's sorry and he's envious. What does an envious person do generally? An envious person, we've discussed this before, we won't go into details here. I remember we had a lecture about the characteristic of envy. Maybe it was based on the verse, Idang tute guyatamam pavaksham anusuyave. Krishna states to Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom, knowing which you shall be relieved from all the miseries of material existence. So an envious person, generally, due to his envy, inflicts pain on others by trying to push them down. Oh, once is acceptable. Twice? You can turn it off. So he tries to cause pain, to inflict, and generally he tries to push others down. When he sees others are getting more than he is, when he sees others are enjoying more than he is, he thinks, why is he enjoying and I'm not? Why is he getting respect and I'm not? Right? Just like this is the example of what is it, Ramachandra Khan, who was so envious of the respect that Haridas Thakur was getting. And that he was thinking this Haridas Thakur is getting so much respect. Everybody's coming, worshipping him. He's just simply chanting Hare Krishna all day long. And he was envious, and therefore he was thinking, I want to bring disrepute upon him. So he commissioned a prostitute to go and to allure Haridas Thakur, thinking, because of his own mentality, thinking that a prostitute would easily captivate his mind and allure him. Of course, what did Haridas Thakur do? The prostitute came in a very suggestive way, first night, trying to provoke him. Haridas Thakur assured her, you sit down, and certainly when I finish chanting my prescribed number of rounds, I'll satisfy your desires. So she sat, and in a provocative way, and Haridas Thakur was fixed in his chanting, but he didn't stop chanting all night long, because he continuously chanted throughout the day and night. So she left and came back the next night, again in a very suggestive poses and in a provocative way. And Haridas Thakur again assured her. And this time when she came, she began listening to Haridas Thakur's chanting. And by the third night, she came, she offered her obeisances to Tulsi, she began chanting with him, and then she completely confessed that she was provoked by Ramachandra Khan to cause disrepute to Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur told her, he said that I knew the very purpose for which you came here for the first night, but I simply allowed you to come so that you could become a devotee. And what she understood, she said, just simply instruct me, tell me what I must do. And Haridas Thakur instructed her and said, you simply give up all your possessions, you come, you continue to worship Tulsi here, and you simply carry on chanting the same prescribed times of the holy name as I am doing in this place. And then everybody heard the great potency of Haridas Thakur, and this is, of course, respect even increased even more. They converted the prostitute into a great saint. So, but Ramachandra Khan was thinking, out of his envy, I'll bring disrepute to Haridas Thakur. He was thinking he would destroy, cause harm to his reputation, to envy. But because Haridas Thakur was so self-satisfied in his chanting of the holy name, he took advantage of Ramachandra Khan's provocation to make a great Vaishnavi. She became a great Vaishnavi. People would come from all over simply to see the potency of Haridas Thakur. Of course, Ramachandra Khan, he and his family were completely destroyed because of his offense to a Vaishnava. But this is an example of envy. One of the many ways envy can manifest is if we're not careful. If we're envious and envy is within our hearts, then even unknowingly we may cause harm to others in an envious way, thinking that I want to be glorified, I want to achieve some material profit or gain, and I cannot tolerate somebody getting something greater than me in my presence. We cause harm to others. And therefore, Chaitanya Bhagavad says that one who causes pain to others, other living beings, and then worships Lord Vishnu, his worship is in vain. In death he suffers. He suffers. It's very dangerous. Therefore, these qualities or characteristics that Krishna is speaking about are true manifestations of one who is dear to Krishna, and therefore he becomes even more dear to Krishna when he extends Krishna's love and his dealings with others to give everyone an opportunity to come in contact with Krishna and with devotional service through his expression of Krishna's love to others. One should aspire to experience that love, and therefore, as we explained, Krishna is very kind to make that love accessible to his devotees. His devotees. Sometimes he may personally send his devotees to come to this world, as we expressed in the example of Srila Prabhupada. Or sometimes we may see that his devotees who come to this world, by their potency, empower others to carry on that same message and to extend that same love for the benefit of others who simply come in contact with that love. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And it is a great fortune for anyone who comes in contact with Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's mission to be able to understand what is the characteristic of pure devotional service, and so that one will not end up being misled by persons who are very eager to gather followers, to gather profit, to gather fame, or to gather for some personal vested interest in the name of being spiritual, or being an avatar, or being whatever, that one who's a genuine devotee of Krishna has no other interest except to please Krishna, and therefore he can transparently extend that message that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita to others in a way that will help others to build their own faith, that Srila Prabhupada is not pulling the wool over our eyes. In Bhagavad Gita, neither in Srimad Bhagavatam, neither in his expression of love by establishing the Krishna consciousness movement, which is a manifestation of his love in this world. Even today, in the age of Kali Yuga, Prabhupada is still with us, watching over us, and protecting those sincere followers who embrace his teachings to their hearts and who carry on his mission in this world. Anyone who actually can come in contact, they are very fortunate, and they should share that fortune with others and make others fortunate. That's what Srila Prabhupada came to give us. Came to make us fortunate, but then he wanted us to make others fortunate as well. So, I don't know if I covered all the topics of this verse, but this is, as I said, this was an extension of the topic that I was speaking on in previous classes. I wish to extend it and to give this message today. Any questions? I know PR would have a question.
Well, I have a comment and a question. Comment is just to clarify with Haridas Thakur and the prostitute. When the prostitute came, he left. You know, it's not that.
Oh yes, that's right. I'm sorry. He said, "You stay here," and he left. That's right. I forgot to mention that. Very important point.
And question: you mentioned about if he hurts other living entities and he says he's a devotee, he's not really a devotee.
Worships Lord Vishnu, then worships Lord Vishnu.
Yeah.
Worships him in vain. Yeah.
Worships him in vain. You have to clarify that a little because everyone seems to hurt other living entities. Even there's that song, "You hurt the one you love." But
I said intentionally.
Intentionally. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely said intentionally.
Okay, that's fine. I was going in and out.
I quoted the verse which didn't say intentionally, but I did say anyone who intentionally causes pain.
Okay. Okay, because you definitely.
You can back it up if you want to hear it.
No,
Say
I
it.
believe Okay, that's no further question.
Yes, Rahul, you want to have a question?
You were saying that like 40 years ago when you read the Bhagavad Gita yourself, you didn't fully believe what it was in there. So sometimes when I try to talk with my even family and friends, some of this basic knowledge, they challenge me by asking me that how could I know that that's actually true? Things like karma and reincarnation, things like that. So in those cases, do you think I should go any further trying to explain them, or just not abandon or just leave them in there? I mean, should I go any further? Do you think it's a good idea trying to convince them?
Well, trying to convince them may not necessarily be, you may not be able to convince them that it's true, but you can also try to convince them by saying, how do you know it's not true? What evidence do you have to disprove it? That may not convince them, but it'll be hard for them to provide the evidence to disprove it. That's what Prabhupada did. Oftentimes did that. He would just turn it around and say, okay, disprove it. And then if you find that they cannot disprove it, then you say, well, I don't know that it's true, but it seems very logical to me, and therefore I want to find out more. But if I want to find out more, like any other experiment, I have to do what's given in the instruction booklet, or I won't get the desired result. If you wanted to perform an experiment, but you do it according to your own whim, you won't get the desired result. But if all the details of the experiment are already given, because it's already produced the result before, then the details are there, then say, I want to follow the experiment and see for myself whether or not it's true. And I have no evidence to say that it's not true at this point. So, that's all. I'm continuing. But to try to convince them sometimes at that particular stage is not the easiest thing to do. Sometimes the most powerful method of convincing others is just simply to be convinced yourself. Yeah.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Krishna Prema Pradayate. He distributes law of Krishna, and he does it through the Sankirtan movement. I have been in touch with this movement for around 22 years, and I haven't experienced law of Krishna. So what does that say about me?
Well, first of all, devotees should always think he has experienced love for Krishna. Even Lord Chaitanya himself said, because our symptom of love is separation from Krishna. We should never think that I love Krishna, I have achieved Krishna. The method of worship for the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers is Hey Radhe Vajradevake Chalavate, to wander through the forest looking for where is Radha, where is Krishna. Not that I've come in contact with them. So, to think that I have no love for Krishna is appropriate even for those who do have love for Krishna. That is the symptom of their love. First point.
Second point.
The second point is, even though we may think, I really don't have any love for Krishna, and I'm not just saying it, and still, if we follow in the footsteps of those who we perceive of those who do have love, then, at least, as we said before, as in answering to Rahul's questions also, is that we may not be completely convinced, but if we want to become convinced, because we see that the love of this world is temporary. And Prabhupada spoke about that a lot when he said, we in this material world, we use this word love very cheaply. Love for dog, love for sex, love for this. It's right in his commentaries in many places when Prabhupada talks about the free use of word love. So when we've actually been able to see through the so-called love of this world, then why would we not want to pursue that method by following the procedures given by those who do have love to experience that love in this life? So even though we have not experienced it, still we should have confidence and faith that it is obtainable by this method and by the association of those who've come to give it. So that in itself, as Prabhupada said in the Nectar of Devotion, is the first symptom of love. Isn't it? It's right in Nectar of Devotion. It says, one may not have complete pure love, but the first symptom of love is to faithfully follow the instructions of the spiritual master and to faithfully follow the instructions of Krishna and the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. That is symptom of love, first symptom of love. And then to continue to follow, then it manifests into real love, spontaneous love, which, as we said, is not something which can be obtained cheaply, but we have to at least be willing to undergo the austerities and purification in order to obtain. Prabhupada says, when you're selling jewels, not everybody wants to pay the price. It's very easy to say these are jewels, but they're simply broken glass, and all you have to pay is a few rupees. And everybody says, yeah, I've got valuable jewels, but all you get is broken glass because you just paid a few rupees. But if you want genuine jewels, then they're valuable. You have to be willing to pay the price. So just go on with the purchasing process.
I'd just like to add to that. One time, Srila Prabhupada was talking with the senior devotees, and Srila Prabhupada was pretending to be, I think was a Christian, and he was saying how, I love God. And the devotees were trying to defeat him, and every time the devotee said something, he would say something so he wasn't defeated. And then the point he made was, when Prabhupada said what they should have said was, if you love God, then why don't you do what he says? So that's the point of, if you love a person, you do what they say. So if you love God, why don't you do what he says? That's what Prabhupada said you should have said, you should say to him. So that's the first.
That wasn't the conversation with Janardhan in Vrindavan, was it?
No.
There was another one, Prabhupada was quite heavy.
Well,
That was with the person, he said about the person who claimed he can love God without guru, or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not positive what the question was, I just know.
No, the answer was.
Janardhan told me he tried to, I don't know if he succeeded in erasing every tape.
It wasn't, because it's in the database. That's how his name is not there, but I know who it was.
He's a long story, just add one thing. He said, Janardhan said, after he asked this question, he saw Prabhupada and everything else was completely black. It was just Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was just smashing him.
Prabhupada said, did you defeat him? Why did you not defeat him? You're not studying my books.
Right. That's what he's talking about. You don't study my books. And he said, well, I study. No, you don't know my books. You don't. And Prabhupada was stressing. And after that, he studied very diligently Prabhupada's books.
You wanted to say something, Satya, right?
Yeah, I just remember reading Alan Watts' books also, and I remember that they were very attractive in a way, but it was only when I started to associate with devotees at Buffalo that I saw that there was an entire world, like a spiritual world, was manifested to me in the relationships between the devotees. It was a complete world that made all those books that we read very incomplete and very cold in a way.
Uh-huh.
And it was the relationships, and you could tell the devotees that they knew something, and I wanted a part of that. So that's another gift that Prabhupada gave, was the association of devotees, that which manifested what we were looking for, a complete philosophy and a complete life in a spiritual life.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll stop here. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai